is in this room. We've got to work together to make whether we the team that we can beat.
Stop it, throw it to the end zone for Robinson, a touchdown.
We come to practice, we practice hard. We take it, we be honest, commitment, and we gonna win games, bro.
All right, welcome everybody back to a Super Monday on the Big Douglas Shorts. George Carmi, Adam Aniba, and our special guest from the Command This podcast, Steve Lim, is not in the house. He's in the car, ducked out from his. Talk about filling in. Got him out at soccer practice today. Steve, what's happening, man? This is the first time you've been on the Big Douglas Show?
This is the first time I've been on the Big Douglas Show. I've obviously I've collabed with George and Adam in the past, but first time being on your show, it is an honor, and the pleasure is all mine. And thank you for having me, man. It's great to be here on a not so victory Monday.
No, it wasn't. What is your first thought from the game yesterday, Steve?
Oh man, first thought is just frustration. I feel like these games are so close; they're at our fingertips, but it's just a reality check. Great teams close out. Great teams beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and we're just not there. I just think we're just straight right down the middle, pretty average, and that's okay. But my hopes are getting up and then getting let down. So yeah, I'm a little disappointed. Seattle was underrated, but yeah, tough loss for sure. Wish we could have had some of those plays back in the second-ish third quarter, early third quarter. So it's okay.
George, I had meant to message you to find out if you recalled or had what we had picked before. I think you, Adam, and I all picked this as a loser out on the West Coast before it started. I know that you both picked, all three of us did, for our weekly pick'ems loss, but at the same time, this felt like one of those that could have gone either way. It was one of those games. How close is this team to being one of those teams where it doesn't have to go that way?
It's interesting because I feel like in the NFL there's haves and have-nots, and there's a lot of people in the middle, right? So I feel like Seattle and us we're peers. I think we are on the same level. I think Seattle is building. I think our quarterback's a little bit better than Geno Smith. I think Sam Howell played pretty well yesterday, but they have a pretty good offense. Great running back. I love Kenneth Walker. I think their defensive line's pretty strong, young secondary. Seattle has a good team. So the fact that we went toe-to-toe with them is promising. But, I think we're smack down in the middle, And I just feel like it's because, we're not a team that's going to totally bottom out like Arizona or something like that. But we're also not the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs of the league, right? We're right in the middle. But we aren't, I don't know how close we are. It depends on our offensive line and it depends on our coaching. The one thing that I kind of take away from the game is I'm frustrated like Steve because you can close your eyes, guys, and you can kind of date back to 2019, 2020, 2017. This game, we've seen this game 100 times before, right? Like the one thing I do like, the good positive takeaway from the game is Sam Howell does look pretty legit, and he did move down the field. And, more often than not, we wouldn't get down the field and score. So Sam Howell scoring was a positive sign. But the fact that they had 50 seconds left, like I just had that gut feeling. I've seen it before where they're going to drive on the field, they're going to kick a field goal, we're going to lose the game. And that was just disappointing. So I like the fact, big picture wise, it might be a blessing in disguise because our team is looking good. Our quarterback's looking promising. I think a lot of us in this room think that we need a new fresh start with our coaching staff. So the fact that we're not kind of middling and kind of sliding in at 500 maybe kind of alleviates that, like maybe Ron should stay conversation and kind of get a new fresh staff for next year. So it ended up in the end. Obviously I wanted to win, but it is what it is.
Adam, it was a real test, I think, for the offense. That is a big-time defense that plays out in the NFC West, and that secondary they have gives a lot of quarterbacks, particularly young quarterbacks, fits. Was that one of those here I am games for Sam Howell? Because that last drive, there were some big boy throws in there.
He's at his best when he's on the move. We kept saying that. I got to give credit to EB because he's really dialing up, I think, what what Howell is comfortable running. And I think that touchdown to Robinson was testament to that. Get the ball to the backs. Big things can happen because they might not be some bigger names in this league, but Robinson and AG can make big things happen in the open field. So I really think that every week we're seeing progression from him. There was a couple times when I thought he was going to take a sack. He didn't. So I see in major progressions, he's turning into a multi-read quarterback now, and it's happening fast. Sometimes with quarterbacks, it can take years to really get to this point. For the first 5 games, he was really locking on to that first read, sometimes a second, and, just missing a lot of things. And, there's still stuff left on the field, but, man, he's really going through his progressions faster. That internal clock's faster. He's stepping up when he needs to. We've seen this show before, but unlike years past, we have something promising, because I think, the biggest concern was, can EB run this offense, or how is the biggest one? And is he the quarterback? And I'm not saying that this solves the future, but I think if it continues at this trajectory right now, I think we go in the offseason and it's just continue to build around these guys. And even if you bring in a new GM, I find it hard to believe that if Hal continues this, even if he has, some bad games, that they're going to really break up this duo. I think they'll find a way to make it happen. But yeah, I didn't expect them to win this game. I had Seattle by 11, so I think they played him well. But again, this defense is just, they are who they are.
Steve, we were talking about going back in time here. It's like the offense played well for a number of years, no defense. Defense played well for a number of years, no offense, right? No, you ain't got never 2 things that match, right? Got jam, no peanut butter. What is it? Why can't we get it all together? Because this really was supposed to be the defense's show this year while they bring Sam Howell along slowly. Quite the opposite. They thrown Sam in and said, hey, buddy, we need you to do it because we don't got anybody else. What is it that we haven't gotten right on the defense?
It's consistency. And even with all of our, 6 first-round picks before we traded Chase and Montez, 6 first-round picks, that's a lot of talent. We were still 31st in the league in scoring and points allowed. I don't care about yards. For me, it's about points allowed. Points for and points allowed is the huge metric for me. So 31st in the league with that star-studded defense. And is it a talent issue? Is it a scheme issue? I mean, clearly they must have thought it was a little bit of talent because we don't have Chase and Montez anymore. So now we're stuck with the defense that's just it comes and goes. It's there. It's not there. Just like you said, it's peanut butter, not jelly. And it's so frustrating that, like George was saying, the have and have nots. The good teams have consistency across all 3 units. And with us, it's the offense is on fire. The defense looks like crap, or the defense is holding the Giants to 14 points and the offense can't get, a first down to save their life. So it's bigger than just a defense. It's just consistency across the team. This team is consistently inconsistent, but it was all about the lack of defense Sunday, and very frustrating to say the least.
George, there was 52 seconds left. I see people all over my timeline saying they should have gone for 2 there. Hey, guess what? You still lose the game if you allow the other team to drive the length of the field for 53 and score a field goal. Where were you on going for 2, and where are you on the eternity that has become a minute in the NFL?
Yeah, so I might not be the one to ask. I know Adam's more of a good for 2 kind of guy. I'm not really that kind of guy. I would have taken the points. I would have basically tied the game up. I would have put the ball, in theory, we're a defensive team. Right? We're supposed to be. That's what we're built on. That's what we're resting upon. I guess the metrics, if you actually watched the game and kind of felt the pulse of the game, Seattle was moving up and down the field. So if you kind of had that that prediction, maybe it would have been wise to go for 2. Maybe I'm more conservative. I'm not beating my head upon that. And I know a lot of people kind of got really upset about the time management with we wasted a timeout, I think, on 3rd down, maybe again on 4th. But the fact of the matter is we got down the field, we scored, we got up. The thing that kind of frustrates me, what lingers in my mind, was the fact that Joey Slye missed an extra point. We could have been he would have been up 27-26 anyway. And honestly, going for 2 with 1 point truly isn't anything, considering the fact we gave up a field goal anyway. So it's not the end of the world for me. I'm not going to beat my head. I'm beating my head more on the fact that our defense just can't stop the ball. And I just think Steve kind of alluded to it. It's a lack of attention to detail. I don't it's kind of hard to pinpoint. It's whether like I think our defense is vanilla. I don't think Jack Del Rio really schemes anything up too impressive. The one thing I did like was in the second half, he started to blitz more and kind of generating more pressure with secondary and defensive backs and nickels blitzing on third down. Because guys, I don't want to. I mean, I'm going to put it out there. People are kind of like towing it. We don't have a pass rush anymore. Like getting rid of Chase Young and Montez Sweat, it wasn't good. Like, I mean, granted, we're getting future draft picks. We don't have a pass rush. Like Geno Smith was sitting there, could lay a cot out and take a nap because no one was even coming close to him. So that's just one thing right there. And then finally, we just Benjamin Sanchez giving DK Metcalf some cushion, a quick slant across his face, had a face mask on that drive, penalty. I think it was pass interference, a fourth down. It's a lot of I don't want to kill Sanchez, but he helped him march down the field with all the mistakes that he had. So I just think it's a lack of attention to detail. So that's where I'm at right now.
It was a tale of two halves for St. Juice because he was good in the first half.
Yeah, he was good.
I think he given up one reception and had one pass breakup, and then of course the two brutal plays, 3 on that last drive. It's a tall. It reminds me a little bit, and we'll get to the Forbes. I'm curious what you guys thought about that, but it reminded me of when they tried to put him on A.J. Brown, and then everybody crushed him for getting mauled in that game, when it's like, well, A.J. Brown's going to maul most people in single coverage. Once they realized that the DK Metcalf was going to kill St. Juice in that final drive, maybe a little help on that would have been nice. Adam, are we at a point now where it's a talent issue or a scheme issue for the defense?
I think it's a scheme issue. I think the talent is good enough to play better than they are. You're looking at the numbers. They're in the bottom 3 in score, points given up, yards given up, runs given up, fourth down conversions given up. I'm not saying they should be, world beaters or anything like that, but they should not be this bad. Like even, some of their reserves, I think, have the ability to, really make some noise. And I think if you talk about bringing pressures, okay, but I think when you bring in pressure, Seattle saw a lot of that coming. You could see, a lot of the extra protections, things going. And Geno Smith for 369 yards, I think it was. This unit's not that bad. So I put this on Ron Rivera. I really do, because I just think he's just extremely unimaginative, has no innovation in his bones, and he's just a dinosaur. And it's coming to a head right now. So, everyone says, well, what difference would it make? I think it's always worth a shakeup at this point, even though they're close. I think you look at the standings, everyone say, well, we're going to look at this for the next couple of weeks, but I don't give a shit. I think this is the time to really shake some things up. And I like to see somebody on the defensive staff maybe come in, try to make a mark for themselves, show a little aggression, but they need to do something because he's not changing a thing.
He's not, and we talk about it on the podcast all the time. I'd be surprised if they do anything, not because I don't agree with you that it's time for a shakeup. I just don't think, unless forced to make changes, Ron's big into making changes, and who's there telling him to make changes. So I think what everybody wants, I'd be surprised if it happens anytime soon, unless they go out and just get embarrassed in the game next week that they obviously should be winning. Early 10-point favors against the Giants.
Wow.
Quick math. When's the last time the Commanders have been 10-point favors? It's been a long time, George.
It's been a very, very long time. I can't remember, honestly.
Steve, the penalty against Forbes, I think, was huge on that game. Whether he was going to be able to stop DK Metcalf one-on-one, again, probably not. But you could tell that the defense changed a little bit when he went out. Where are you with the way these things get called now? It felt like, yes, penalty 15 yards, but throwing him out felt egregious.
100%, Doug. I'm with you. And so look, Forbes last game, he was playing. He had the slump. He came in. He played fantastic last game. So I feel like the momentum was on the right side of the pendulum. He comes to this game. He's fired up. Yeah, he goes high on Tyler Lockett. 100% agree, Doug. It's 15 yards, no question. Ejection, absolutely not. I posted today on Twitter, look at the Kareem Jackson on Logan Thomas. That was 10 times as bad. Yeah. Logan got concussed, and it took them 4 weeks to suspend that dude, but they find a way to suspend Forbes. Kick him out of the game immediately. And I don't agree with it.
Oh, and basically it was a one-game suspension, Steve.
Terrible. I don't get it. It's such a bang-bang play, and it wasn't egregious. It didn't look like targeting per se. So I don't know. And I think the defense did change. The dynamic did change when he was gone. You saw more Danny Johnson. I don't know if they were ready for it. I just don't think they were.
Which is odd, George, because it's not like Danny Johnson hasn't been getting work.
No.
Right? Like, I mean, he should have been ready to step in, but again, I don't think, as we talk about on podcasts all the time, George, right? It doesn't feel like they have any. I mean, on a day when we should be applauding the offense for having another one of those days, here we are on a Monday complaining about how terrible the defense was.
Yeah, 100%. I think Steve nailed it. Like, I think it definitely was a personal foul. I think it was an unnecessary hit, but I think he shouldn't have been ejected from the game. And I think it kind of ruined the momentum. Like, I think, one thing I do like about the first half is, we can get on Benjamin St-Juste, and he had a couple of errors, but for the most part, Doug, you mentioned it. He had a pretty good game. I thought he had a pretty good first half. And the secondary in the first half was playing pretty well. They were fired up. They were ready to up for the challenge, and they were doing pretty well. But then Tyler Lockett really started to shine, in my opinion. He was targeted a lot, and he was winning on routes. I think, obviously it's next man up because you never know. You can twist the ankle, and somebody has to be ready to go. So Danny Johnson should have been ready to go, and he does pretty good, but he's just an average athlete. He's not necessarily an elite player. And on that one Kenneth Walker play, going back attention to details, I believe he slipped. It basically led Kenneth Walker to have a good angle to basically run. This is the play I'm talking about, 64 yards. He basically was turning the corner, and then Percy Butler missed a tackle and it became a large play. So, it's attention to details, it's poor mistakes. I mean, honestly, it's just not good enough. And I don't want to put this out there, but there's some players that rise to the occasion where it's it's a critical moment, it's game time, throw the ball at me. I want the ball at me. I'm curious if we have players like that because I feel like, Benjamin St-Juste, instead of being right up in Metcalf's face, I'm going to challenge this guy. I'm going to shut it down. Throw it at me. I dare you to throw it at me. Giving him a big cushion and letting huge target just run across you. I'm just curious. So what is that? Is that fear? Or is it just not ready to seize the moment? What's the deal right there? I just don't get it.
Is that scheme, George, or is he allowed to play 7 yards off of DK on a 4th and 5? I don't know. It's frustrating to see it though.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We don't know, and it's one of the things that we talk about on the Tuesday film review shows. We're not in the room, so we don't know. But how much? And that's why I asked Adam earlier about scheme versus players, because if he's supposed to be 5 yards off the line, if that's how he's being coached, let's say, and he's lining up there 7.5 off, and the guy gets the first down, right? That's because you were 2.5 yards further off than you were supposed to be. Even 1.5 yards is what we're talking about on these bang bang plays, right? So it's if you're not in the room to know, and Lord knows they get paid a lot of money, right? But it's got to be frustrating if you're a coach, say Del Rio, and you've got that thing lined up. And to your point, George, Danny Johnson falls down, and then Percy Butler can't make a tackle, and it's a 65-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
It's well, I mean, where does that lie on the coaching? I get the frustration with the coaching. I do, but I wonder how much of it is just not being gap specific and steady.
Let me throw one thing out there, Doug. I don't know if Adam's going to answer the question, but one thing that I heard of today while I was just, doing my daily thing, listening to radio and stuff, on the 4th and 5 play where when they threw the ball, DK Metcalf and Benjamin St-Juste got the pass interference, F.A. Obata was supposed to drop back in sort of a soft coverage and was supposed to be an obstruction and kind of make Geno Smith just hesitate for 1 second before he threw the ball, but he didn't drop back, and that's where he threw the ball, and it was just a play that was happening there. So I think there is attention to detail from the players. I think maybe the coaches aren't hammering it home enough and they're not receptive to it. I don't know what's going on, but they just aren't. There is an attention to details. We heard that with Chase Young. He wasn't doing what the coaches were saying. So maybe it is falling on deaf ears. I have no idea, but I don't know.
I noticed that Chase played with his hand in the dirt out in San Francisco this week, and he didn't tend to do that a whole bunch here, whatever that was worth. Adam, how much do you think that is the problem where it's the message? And I guess we've talked about this some too. Part of it is not necessarily the hammering home of details, but are we at the point where the message just isn't being received, at least on defense anymore?
Yeah, no, it's not being received because, you talk about fire and all that comes from coaching staff. It comes from coaching staff like Cam Curl. That guy's a leader back there, and I think he needs a little help. And usually you have, last year you had Coach Harris, that those two together really made things go. And I think once he got removed from the equation, You just see it. There's just a lack of attention to detail. If in this defense, he said it perfect. I know teams do drop some defensive line and coverage in certain packages. Washington tends to do it more than others, from what I've seen, and they continue to do it with guys that shouldn't be doing it. Casey Tuhil, I like him. Don't get me wrong. He was dropped too many times. We saw with Chase Young here too many times. 3-4 teams are more likely to do that. That's where you see that more. You don't see it as much in the 4-3 occasionally. I just think we see it too much here, and I think they're trying to hammer home that if everyone does their job, the plays will work. But listen, good defenses let their playmakers loose, set up situations to expose the offensive line, to expose those creases. I forgot his name, but I think it was the right tackle for Seattle. I guess he was either hurt, he was coming off injury, or he hasn't played. I don't remember the story with him. But it's like that's where you should see like an overload. You should see where they're keen on that. He never does that. Anytime I hear about things, the first thing I look in the game, are they attacking this side or doing that? He just doesn't do that. So he's not opportunistic. And yeah, you can look at a lot of players, but these players aren't going to continue to develop if they're just being told, well, it's not working because you're not doing your assignment. That's all they're being told. I think it's the opposite with Eric Bieniemy. I think when he finds things like that, he changes it up. I've seen him do it. So it's night and day between the offense, how the offensive coach and the defensive coach. So I think it's totally on the defensive coordinator. I think the talent is average at worst and is not bottom of the league talent level. I think that comes right back to coaching.
I got something real quick, Adam, on that. So two things to Adam's point about Jack Del Rio. I see Myles Garrett play, and he's, trust me, one of the best defensive players, him and Aaron Donald in the league. But he's on the outside. He's on the inside. He's on the other side. The dude is not stationary. We never did that with any of our 4 first-round linemen. They were in the same spot on every single solitary play. Go straight forward, go. No creativity whatsoever. That's what frustrates me. And to Adam's point about missing, Cam Curl's the leader and missing Coach Harris, a lot of times teams are anchored with the leadership at the linebacker spot, middle linebacker spot. We don't have that. We haven't had it for years. We were hoping Jamin would turn into that guy, and we still don't know. He had some great plays yesterday, and we thought maybe Cody Barton was going to be that guy. And we continue to strike out at linebacker just as much as we strike out at quarterback, and it's just as frustrating because your linebacker is kind of your quarterback on the defense.
Right.
So I think that's another huge thing they got to address next year is find a real linebacker who can just take control of that defense and get everyone in line. Thanks.
No, I completely agree with you. Let's pause and switch directions here and take a little bit of a look at the offense. Steve, where were you at with Bieniemy before the season as a potential hire, and where you're at with him now?
I mean, I love them as a potential hire because look what we saw. I didn't know how much, we still don't know, of Andy Reid calling plays versus Eric Bieniemy. But when you're in the system, you learn things through osmosis, and that's great. So he brought his talents here. Clearly, I'm sold on Eric Bieniemy as a play caller. I believe he has some consistency issues too, and I know in that Andy Reid offense, in Eric Bieniemy's offense, it's not Andy Reid's. In that West Coast offense, that short passes are an extension to run. I get it, but there's times we need a little more strategy to run the ball. Every time, it's first and 10 from a shotgun, they're going to run the ball. It's so predictable, and it gets 1 yard. Just be a little more creative of timing and tempo of when to run the ball. I get it. We're always going to be 75-25 run. That's our identity. We've never had an identity. We have our identity. It's 75% run. And so just run the ball a little smarter. But I love what he's done up for Sam. I love the last 2 weeks, the different line changes. You can see clearly the protection has been well improved the last 2 weeks. And I don't know if that's on Bieniemy or if that's on, Larson getting somewhere playing time. I'm not sure. But I love Eric Bieniemy as an offensive coordinator. And the better he does as an offensive coordinator, the better chance he has of being a head coach next year, because his one flaw was he's been in Andy Reid's system. Well, now he's all alone and unafraid, and he's being successful. So he could end up getting stolen from us for all we know. Yeah. So
it was interesting. Right before this, I was on the phone with my brother, and we were talking about the same kind of thing. Like, what does Bieniemy kind of have to do to get the next job, right? Because in theory, you don't want Howe to restart again, and it'd be nice to have the same offense in place. But Steve, you kind of mentioned it, where we shouldn't be calling it the Reid offense. It shouldn't necessarily even be the EB offense. It's all just some form of a West Coast offense. So this notion that Bieniemy has to be back to keep Howell's progress going, in reality, you just need somebody that's doing the West Coast offense. I think, that being said, you can see kind of in the first couple of games, the counter argument there is, but it also, everybody calls a game a little bit differently, and it takes time to get on the same page there. Quarterback and play caller, what do we like? What do we don't like? George, this game, because they ran the ball back to back on a drive, and I'm serious here, was the sixth time all season that they did run pass to start a drive.
Yeah. So to that end, I'm not super harsh. I know people are really angry about running the ball, and I see where you're coming from in regard to that. But if time of possession is still being dominated, like if you do have a great time of possession, I don't see a super need to run the ball. Like I understand, like I get what people are saying. Maybe diversifying the offense, maybe switching it up a little bit. But I think if you can throw the ball shortly, make that an extension of the run game, I'm not necessarily opposed to it. I think one thing I've been hearing the past couple of days, which makes a lot of sense, is that the offensive linemen just prefer to have a different perspective. Instead of having to receive defenders running at them over and over again, play after play, it's kind of wearing on their body. They'd rather be the attackers on a run play. I can see that perspective from it. So I'm okay with that. But, I think that, in today's, if you want to be analytical, if you want to look at the EPA, if you want to look at explosive plays, you have a higher probability of doing that with a passing game. If you do that on a screen, if you do that on a short pass, a slant, something along that nature, that 3-yard pass or their screen could be a 10-yard gain, while a running play maybe 5 or 6. If you do the analytics, that's how it goes. But I do like I see what you guys are saying about the balance with the run game. But it's not worrying me per se. One thing I do like is I think Eric Bieniemy has unleashed Sam Howell. I like what you guys are saying. If Eric Bieniemy does leave, good for him, right? I think he's kind of proven that he's kind of a QB whisperer, because Sam Howell, going into this year, people were saying that Sam Howell was one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the league. Washington's going to be 6-11 or whatever they're going to say. Why are they rolling with a 5th-round draft pick? So, Eric Bieniemy threw him in the deep end, gave him 50 passes per game, and has elevated his confidence, right? Doug, I see what you're saying. Keeping him in a West Coast offense, there might be some parallels there. True to that. There's some truth to that for sure. I like consistency, though. I wouldn't mind having I think if Sam Howell he's game 11 into his career and he's looking like this, imagine year 3 in the system with the same thing over and over again with the same coach and giving more and more so. So I like that. I think a potential hierarchy could be Eric Bieniemy as the head coach, Davida Pritchard as the offensive coordinator, kind of like a QB. He's a QB coach now, kind of moving up that way, and then getting a defensive coach to kind of replace Jack Del Rio. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but realistically, I think Eric Bieniemy should be on the coaching list. But then at the same time, do your due diligence to kind of see who's out there and see who can fit the criteria. I think that's kind of where I'm at.
Adam, how does that tend to work? Would you, if you're just narrowing down a list to say, all right, we want an offensive head coach and we want them to work out of a West Coast system, how realistically is the change from one coach to another if you're in that same kind of system? Language pretty much stays the same in everything, right?
No, the verbiage can change. That's one of the things about the West Coast. They can go to colors, they can go to numbers, but that's from what I understand. That's more the easy part. I think what George or Steve were saying, it's about situational. So it's okay, they're running that West Coast offense, but I just saw a stat that just jumped out at me that Howell right now leads the NFL, 788 yards, 6 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, 9th highest QBR. But the most important, only second in the NFL for sacks taken. So it's almost like you get to the fourth quarter, that's where you see a lot of tempo, you see a lot of hurry up. So yeah, that can go along with the system, but I think that has more to do with the coaching. A name that always comes back to me is Jason Campbell. You heard about Clinton Portis with Kevin Sheehan talk about. A lot of people around the league thought he was going to be really good, and the downfall was that the continued switch of system, changing tendencies, things like that. And I think if you can just keep him with Bieniemy at least for another year, it doesn't need to be a whole career thing, but consecutive years, that's where Howell can get to the point. Let's say EB departs after that, where he's more comfortable in running that. He knows what he likes to run 2 years in a row with the same system. So I think you can do it, But I think if you're a GM and you're coming here, that's got to be one of your considerations. You know, you're not just going to say, okay, you're going to be the head coach because you're good with the quarterback. They're going to weigh that with other candidates and see how much of a learning curve, how drastic would the change be? Because when they do interviews, these coaches pitch to them their playbook, what they want to run. The ownership and scouts tell them this is what we like to run. It's the kind of players we like to draft. So I think it would be, even if they try to get a West Coast minded coach or offensive coordinator, I don't think it would be the best thing for him, because in three systems in 3 years, even if it is close, I don't like the idea of it.
Rondo, welcome to the podcast. How are you, buddy?
What's up with you guys, man? How y'all doing?
Good. Excited to have you on. We're just talking about the game from yesterday. What are your original thoughts after watching the game?
Man, that game was stressful. I'm not gonna lie, man. It's just a lot, man. We seeing the same thing week in and week out. It gets annoying sometimes, you know. But I'm trying to be patient with the whole process of this whole situation. But it gets harder and harder every week, because some weeks we pull through. Some weeks we show that the same stuff that we've been going through the whole season with the defense. But I'm just being patient.
How were you a fan of how before the season? How do you like how now?
Yeah, I was actually a fan when we drafted him in the what was it, the 5th round, right? Yeah. Like, I'm gonna keep it 100. I immediately when they said they called Carson Wentz and they told him that we was gonna be drafting Sam Howell, I knew he was a starter. I knew he was gonna be this future, honestly. But yeah, I've been on the Howell show before he was the 3rd string.
And so you think you're ready for him to be the future of the program now? You think he's got what it takes?
Absolutely. And it's the crazy part is, I be on my Twitter and I see a lot of people say that tank for Caleb. But I'm not thinking about no quarterback right now. I'm not. So yeah, I'm all in on Howell right now.
It's I'm with you. I think the group here is the same. It's one of the reasons why I like this group, is because none of us are sitting around waiting for the team to lose on Sundays.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there are so many people that are already on to the draft now. I can't even imagine looking at a mock draft right now. I'm still trying to pull out as many W's as I can right now. Well, were you surprised at the outcome? What were your thoughts, Rondo, before that game yesterday? Did you have them winning?
Honestly, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't have us winning. And it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard even saying that, for the simple fact that's my team. But when you look back at it from what the Seahawks did versus the Ravens, they got blown out. So next game they got to come with some type of fire, some type of energy. And we just got a tough win against the Patriots. So it's like, put 2 or 2 together. One team got blew out. One team barely got past. Next week, I didn't think we had a chance, honestly, but I knew he was gonna put up a fight for sure.
The Ravens, they had like almost 200 yards rushing agast the Seahawks. How about that?
That's crazy.
That Ravens game was crazy. By the way, I was stunned when Cleveland came back in that game.
To be fair, Mitchell had like a 70-yard run though in that game. But I agree with you though. I think Gus Edwards had a touchdown, and I think Lamar Jackson had a touchdown. They ran up on him though. You're right.
Yeah.
Steve, I know you got to run. I'm going to catch you later on your podcast, 8:30. Command this. So I'm excited for that one. First time with you guys, I think.
First time. Yep. Yeah, for sure. It was a pleasure hanging with all you guys. Hey, Rondo, I hit you up, man. Maybe we get you on too, man. Love your content. Adam, we got to link up again too. It's been too long.
Definitely.
So, Doug, thank you for having me. I appreciate everything you guys do, and we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
All right, brother. Be safe on that ride.
All right. Peace.
That was Steve live from a parking lot from his son's soccer game. So we always appreciate that.
Good man. I
know it. That's right. Adam, how are we supposed to look at the rest of the season now?
It's a tough one, because I'm a little different from you, because I'm a draft guy. I'm into the season. I in no way am cheering for them to lose any games, because I just don't believe in that. But I do have my eye on the draft already. But the way for the rest of the season, I think the NFC is bad. So there is definitely multiple paths for them to keep in, and it'll probably be mathematically in it, through mid-December. But right now, it's just winning each game. With this Giants game, you just can't lose this game. With DeVito at quarterback, this is typical Washington, where an unknown guy, goes for 300 yards. But it just can't be it. I think they have to come out this 10-point favor. I don't think, again, I don't remember the last time we've seen that, but I think they have to come out. They have to come out different on defense, and I think we'll continue to see them aggressive on offense. And you talk about the Ravens. They had all those rushing yards, but Washington got the balls to their running backs. They got it in the passing game. So I like that. That's what we've been seeing, clamor for all year, especially with Gibson. So I think just continue to see the maturation of this offense. Who's keepers, who's not, because bottom line is, I love this team, but can they make a run? I think the offense can have a shootout with anybody in this league and score 25, 30 plus points, but this defense will also give up 30 plus points a game. So to me, it's just watching, being grateful for, the gains that we see from here on out, because the defense, as long as it's Del Rio's system, no matter, if we get turnovers, make some plays, he's going to continue to put them in bad spots and, not in the best position to succeed. So it's just looking for little gains from here on out, in my opinion.
Rondo, before you hopped on, we were talking about the talent level of the team. How many superstars are on the team currently? Are there any superstars on the team?
Superstars.
Big word. Yeah.
It's a big word. Yeah.
Well, because the fan base thinks there's some superstars on there. I'm
Yeah,
not.
they always do. 100%.
I would say Terry and John Allen. That's about it. But outside of that, no, there's none.
And it's been wild. They've had a hard time getting Terry the ball this year. Like, it looks like they start out getting him the ball in the first half, and I'm getting sized for one of those Terry games, and then all of a sudden there'll be nothing. They still hadn't figured out what's going on with Jahan Dotson. George, why can't we get Jahan cranked up at all?
I just think EB's system is kind of more like routine and process driven as opposed to featuring a wide receiver, right? So I definitely think that's kind of where they're at. But at the same time, I don't think that's a problem. I kind of like the fact that it's distributing the ball, right? Like I think he threw the ball to 9 different receivers, and we're moving the ball up and down the field, and we're we're processing, we're scoring we move down the field. So what's the issue with that? I think I would love to see Terry McLaurin be more involved and Jahan Dotson more involved, but at the same time, they have to warrant it as well. Like that's one thing I have a conversation with a lot. Like I love Terry McLaurin. I think he's a prototypical great leader in the locker room. He does everything well. But if he warrants domination, he warrants 15 targets a game, then he should be getting it, right? So whatever it is, it may be disconnect with EB. Maybe he doesn't believe in featuring a wide receiver one. Terry isn't dominating in the system. And yeah, I'll throw it out there. I don't know if it's a good topic of conversation, but like, we're investing $70, $90 million in a wide receiver with Terry McLaurin. Do you think it's a wise investment if Eric Bieniemy is not going to necessarily use him that way? Like we talked about trading assets, would you trade Terry McLaurin? I don't know if I would want to go down that route right now, but just something in the back of my mind if Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach. Like, what do you guys think about that? He's only turned 29, I think.
Well, I can tell you, remember it was the point of conversation. What was that 2 seasons ago when the Eagles traded the Titans a first-round pick for A.J. Brown? I think maybe the Titans like to have A.J. Brown back and give that first up. But I hear, but that's going to be a thing, George, and I think you can already see it. Like more and more receivers go in the first round because I think much like running backs, they're so expensive.
I agree with you 100%.
You're just going to get that 3, 4, 5 years out of them out of that first contract, and then there'll be a couple like the Jamar Chases, the Jeffersons, the AJ
Robert
Brown,
Harrison Jr.
that are going to get the second contract, and you'll be paying the second contract. But I don't think that. I think you're going to find different tiers, and the fan base is not going to like to hear this, but I'm not sure that Terry's up on that.
I like Terry a lot. I think he would be an exceptional wide receiver too. If there was another big body wide receiver 1, I think he would be fantastic with that. That's where I stand. I know other people kind of feel a different direction. I love Terry McLaurin, but if he really is that dude, and he maybe needs to step it up, he should be getting 120 targets a year, 130 targets a year. We're not seeing that, right? We're not seeing that from him, and they do that with other wide receivers. Jamar Chase isn't a hulking wide receiver. He's there are other guys. Amon-Ra St. Brown's not a hulking wide receiver. They're getting these targets. Why aren't they featuring him? Like yesterday, close dip and tuck game. Somehow leads the league in passing yards. Terry McLaurin had 4 catches for 33 yards yesterday. And one of them was like a 4th and 5 play, which is great. He's a clutch and he made it happen. But I don't know what the disconnect is. And maybe someone smarter than me can tell me, but I don't know what it is. Go ahead, Ryan.
I feel like, and I feel like he's literally the only receiver one in the whole entire league that has to go through that. To be honest,
Yeah.
I swear to God, like
Yeah.
you, it's like week in, week out. You see these top receivers, they go for 14 receptions, 175 yards.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Terry McLaurin, 8 receptions, 94 yards. You know what I'm saying? 7 receptions, 75 yards. So it's like I don't know. It's not I don't know. It can't be the quarterback. I just feel like we just don't force people.
Rondo, I was going to say that because sorry to interrupt you, Adam.
No, you're good. I was done anyway.
Both you guys, sorry to interrupt both you guys. For years and years and years, the argument's been Terry hasn't had a quarterback. We have Sam Howell now. We do have a quarterback, right? And then walking into this game, we all would talk to each other. We've been like, DK Metcalf's going to walk away with 80 yards. Tyler Lockett's going to walk away with 80 yards. Jackson Smith and Jigga's going to have, he's going to be a third wide receiver, going to be targeted 5 or 6 times. We say that openly, and opposition says that for Terry McLaurin, but walking away, those guys produced, but Terry didn't. So, I don't know what it is. Adam, I don't know if you want to touch on it. Now I'm throwing.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you talked about it because I'm going to wait and see for that one. I've been thinking of that for a while now.
Okay.
We continue this current trajectory. If there's a scenario where they can get a first round from him, they're going to do it. I'm telling you right now because I'm seeing the intricacies of this system. I don't think it's not that they don't need a number one based on how they spread out the ball. I don't think that at the end of this year, unless Terry just has some crazy games, that he's untouchable because I think that they go into a draft. You hear me talk about Brock Bowers. You come into a situation where you can go in the first round with your extra picks, guy like Terry McLaurin, you can walk away with a blue chip left tackle and a guy like Brock Bowers. Then you have Jahan Dotson, Brown, fill it in from there. I don't know. You definitely have to seriously consider it. I think a big problem with our fan base is they just fall in love with guys. But maybe Terry isn't ideal for this system because if he was, I think we'd see more stuff schemed for him. And that's just not what the system really calls for. I think it's more about spreading the ball. It's about crosser slants, getting open. And granted, he does a lot of that well. But I think if it comes to a point where they can get some legit capital for him, I definitely think the ownership's going to consider it. Because, again, Ron Rivera, all these other guys, they're not going to be here. So,
Doug, let me throw one thing and you can take the lead again. I'm kind of curious if a speeder, an over-the-top explosive wide receiver is what truly fits the system. Think about Tyreek Hill in Kansas City, Deshaun Jackson in Philadelphia.
George.
He does, but he doesn't break. Those guys, Tyreek Hill and Deshaun Jackson, I mean, that's true. But I would say those guys are historical, track the ball in the air, deep ball kind of guys. And I don't know. Terry's a contested catcher. We keep hearing that over and over again. But, those guys can take the top off the defense. I don't know. Maybe I don't know what it is, but it's disappointing, I don't know.
Well, Rondo said it earlier. I think the big difference for Terry is how many targets did you say he got this week, George?
I can pull it up. I think he had 4 catches. I think 6 targets.
Either way, I guarantee you that Stephon Diggs hasn't had a game where he got 4 targets.
A.J. Brown averages
since Maryland.
It doesn't happen.
A.J. Brown averages 13 to 14 targets per game. I'm telling you, I know that for a fact. I looked it up and I was like, "What the hell is going on here? Why do they target him almost twice as much as Terry? It's crazy."
Yep.
And that's so. To Ronald's point, I guess it's kind of hard to judge. It feels like Terry's having a bad year, but if you're not going to give him the ball and if you're not going to force feed him the ball, and sometimes that's what you got to do for these premier wide receivers, then really, what are we doing here? Right. Adam, don't get me all excited about talking about Brock Bowers in the first round, please. You know how that gets me. Yeah. Rondo, when did you start making content?
Content in general or Washington content?
Either one or both, I guess.
In general,
tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first, I'm 21. I'm 21 years old. I just started doing YouTube probably I want to say 3 years ago. And I started doing Washington content 2 years ago. And it's actually crazy how it started. All this started because I was live streaming to my supporters, playing I be playing the game, doing reactions and stuff. And I randomly reacted to a Tennessee Titans game versus us. So, and we all, I don't know if y'all remember that game, but I'm gonna just say 3-yard line. If you remember, you remember. Yeah. And I kind of lashed out. I was sick and tired of it. So I put that on YouTube and it went crazy. It got love. I'm like, oh, so people want to see this? I'm gonna keep posting it because with us, it's only we the only ones that understand our team and what they do. So to be honest, I was like, okay, so with this team, it can be funny because we do a lot of stupid stuff. So I was like, I'm gonna just keep pushing this content out, and here we are.
And you put them out, you try to get them out daily or just whenever you feel like? You got a schedule that you run by? How does that work?
So basically we play Sunday. Sometimes I watch the game, sometimes I don't. So I'll probably just post like every Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And what do you think about the rest of the season?
who we 4-6? I don't know, man. We got a hard schedule. We got a hard slate ahead of us. So it's gonna be hard. That's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna be tough. I mean, I feel like we can sneak in a couple of wins, maybe 2 wins, but being realistic, I don't think it's gonna like end well.
George, that's a whole lot of misery Mondays on the way.
Yeah, a lot of division for sure. I was thinking about that too. I was looking at our schedule. We get the Giants, Cowboys, Dolphins, Rams, Jets, and we got the 49ers and Cowboys right after that. And then we're hearing talk about Aaron Rodgers doing some holistic stuff and coming back from his Achilles tendon, come back in December. We'll see what happens there. It's tough, guys. Like, I was thinking about it. Like, the Bears and the Giants game earlier in the year are going to haunt us, man. We're 4-6 now. You have to win at least 9 games to basically get in the playoffs. I'm thinking, right? So we have to go 5-2 to end the year. We've been 2-6 over the last 8 games. And where are we going to come off with?
That's right.
On a 5-2 streak, So it's going to be hard to come by. I mean, I think my season is enjoying the ride, watching the youth, like Adam's talking about, watching Sam Howell develop, kind of seeing how that goes over there. We'll see how the draft comes about. What I'm looking for, and Adam, I'm sure you'll kind of help us out as we do this later on. I want to look at left tackles. I want to look at and edge rushers. I think we should be looking at that early in the draft. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's kind of where I'm at right now.
And it's a great position to need for, so it's a great position to go in the draft.
I feel like our first pick should definitely be a left tackle, right? Y'all agree?
I think so, 100%.
Yeah. Probably the problem is, and I know that's why some people enjoy the losses, but we probably won't be up high enough to get the kid from Penn State who probably goes 3 or 4. Although I guess they like the kid from Notre Dame maybe even more now.
But there's a couple that are going to rise.
Rondo, high and early for tackle for sure.
You're going to see
a couple comments, by the way. Sorry.
You're going to see with the new role with the Senior Bowl. Now that they have juniors invited, you're going to see a bunch of left tackles you probably didn't even know about that are going to be rising. So, in about 2 months from now, the Penn State, Notre Dame, they could be 3 and 4 ranked. So,
why did they do that, Adam? I know you know those guys fairly well.
Yeah.
What was there was not enough talent pool with the seniors?
No. Schools have been pushing it for years. It started on the small school level, and you started seeing more invites, and then a lot of those guys were transferring, so it turned into they were there 5 years anyway, so it didn't really matter. Then it kind of morphed into a situation where a lot of juniors wanted to get more spotlight, but there really wasn't much, a pre-draft opportunities for them unless they got the workouts, and those are hard to get to. A lot of times they'd go to other schools, things like that. So, it was just kind of collective that finally came together. And yeah, they have enough talent pool. But now this is going to be ridiculous. Now we're going to see so much talent coming through the Senior Bowl. And what I love about Jim Nagy, I try to talk to him when I did my training, he popped in and talked to us a little bit too, is it's not just the Senior Bowl, the months and months and months leading up to it. He just kind of puts out nuggets about guys, stuff you don't know. And he's really turned me on to a lot of, small school HBCU guys. But I think it widens the talent pool now. So it's crazy. Well, we can talk now about all the draft picks, mock draft stuff, but I'm telling you, it's going to be so different in the next 2 months. Because right now there's 3 quarterbacks that are in the top, 5 to 6 picks. You think, those left tackles, they'll be in the top 10. Man, not necessarily. Brock Bowers, the wide receivers, there's corners, edge guys, anything could happen. But I think Washington's going to be right in that sweet spot that if they have to move up a couple spots, they'll be able to.
And what's interesting, guys, is that for the first time, they're starting to right the ship, because basically for years we kind of had disruptive draft prospects because of COVID. We had people that are staying an extra year and kind of had disrupted years of playing and so on and so forth. Now it's getting back to a normal draft cycle. So we're starting to see legit juniors, legit seniors coming back again. So we're seeing that now, which will be interesting.
All right, fellas, I think that does it for us today. Rondo, appreciate you hopping on with us. We'll have to get you back on another time when we've got a little bit more time. And George, Adam, we'll see you next week.
Take it easy, guys.
All right, fellas. Good shit, fellas. Appreciate it.
All right.
All right, cool. All right, Big Dougie. See you tomorrow?
Yep, see you tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. Peace.